It is reported that it is reported then that Phoenicians and Egyptians were the first of all mankind to declare the sun and moon and stars to be gods, and to be the sole causes of both the generation and decay of the universe, and that they afterwards introduced it into common life the deifications and theogonies, which are matters of general notoriety. Before these, it is said, no one made any progress in the knowledge of the celestial phenomena, except the few men mentioned among the Hebrews, who with clearest mental eyes looked beyond all the visible world and worshipped the Maker and Creator of the universe, marveling much at the greatness of His wisdom and power, which they represented to themselves from His works. And being persuaded that He alone was God, they naturally spake only of Him as God, Son of Father, successively receiving and regarding this as the true, the first, and the only religion. The rest of mankind, however, having fallen away from this only true religion, and gazing in awe upon the luminaries of heaven with eyes of flesh, as mere children in mind, proclaimed them gods, and honored them with the sacrifices and acts of worship, though as yet they built no temples, nor formed likenesses of mortal men with statues and carved images, but looked up to the clear sky and to heaven itself, and in their souls reached up into the things there seen. Not here, however, did polytheistic error stay its course for men of later generations, but driving on into an abyss of evils wrought even greater impiety than the denial of God, the Phoenicians and then the Egyptians being the first authors of the delusion. For from them, it is said, Orpheus, son of Oeagrus, first brought over with him the mysteries of the Egyptians, and imparted them to the Greeks, just in fact as Cadmus brought to them the Phoenician mysteries, together with the knowledge of letters, for the Greeks up to that time did not yet know the use of the alphabet. First, therefore, let us inquire how those of whom we are speaking have judged concerning the first creation of the world. Then consider their opinions about the first and most ancient superstition found in human life. And thirdly, the opinions of the Phoenicians. Fourthly, those of the Egyptians. After which, fifthly, make a distinction in the opinions of the Greeks. We will first examine their ancient and more mythical delusion, and then their more serious and, as they say, more natural philosophy concerning the gods. And after this we will travel over the account of their admired oracles, after which we will also take a survey of the serious doctrines of the noble philosophy of the Greeks. So when these have been thoroughly discussed, we will pass over to the doctrines of the Hebrews. I mean of the original and true Hebrews, and of those who afterwards received the name Jews. And later, all these we will add our own doctrines, as it were a seal set upon the whole. The history of all these we must necessarily recall, that so by comparison of the doctrines which have been admired in each country, the test of the truth may be exhibited, and it may become manifest to our readers from what opinions we have departed, and what that truth is which we have chosen. But now let us pass to the first point. From what source then shall we verify our proofs? Not, of course, from our own scriptures, lest we should seem to show favor to our argument, but let Greeks themselves appear as our witnesses, both those of them who boast of their philosophy and those who have investigated the history of other nations. Well then, in recording the ancient theology of the Egyptians from the beginning, Diodorus the Sicilian leads the way, a man thoroughly known to the most learned of the Greeks, as having collected the whole library of history into one treatise. From him I will set forth first what he has clearly stated in the beginning of his work concerning the origin of the whole world, while recording the opinion of the ancients in the manner following. Chapter 7. Diodorus. The full account of the ideas entertained concerning the gods by those who first taught men to honor the deities, and of the fabulous stories concerning each of the immortals, I shall endeavor to arrange in a separate work, because this subject requires a long discussion, but all that we may deem to be suitable to our present historical inquiries we shall set forth in a brief summary, that nothing worth hearing may be missed. But concerning the descent of the whole human race and the transactions which have occurred in the known parts of the world, we shall give as accurate an account as may be possible about matters so ancient, and shall begin from the earliest times. With regards then to the first origin of mankind, two explanations have been held among the most accepted physiologists and historians. For some of them, on the supposition that the universe is uncreated and imperishable, declared that the human race also has existed from eternity, their procreation of children having never had a beginning, while others who thought the world to be created and perished said that, like it, mankind were first created within definite periods of time. For according to the original constitution of the universe, heaven and earth, they said, had one form, their nature being mixed. But afterwards, when their corporeal particles were separated from each other, though the cosmos embraced in itself the whole visible order, the air was subjected to continual motion. The fury part of it gathered towards the highest regions, because fire is naturally borne upward by reason of its lightness, and from this cause the sun and all the multitude of stars were caught and carried off in the general whirl. But the muddy and turbid part of the air in its commixture with the most parts settled down together because of its heaviness, and by revolving in itself and continually contracting made the sea out of the moist parts, and out of the more solid parts made the earth muddy and quite soft. This was the first hardening from the fire around and sun shining upon it, and afterwards, when the surface was thrown into fermentation through the warmth, some of the liquid particles swelled up in many places, and tumors were formed about them, surrounded by thin membranes, a thing which may still be seen going on in stagnant pools and marshy places, when upon the cooling of the ground the air became suddenly fiery, because the change does not take place in it gradually. The moist parts then being quickened into life by the warmth of in the way of mentioned, during the nights they receive their nourishment direct from the moist which falls from the surrounding atmosphere, and during the days become hardened by the heat, and at last, when the pregnant cells attained their full growth and the membranes were thoroughly heated and burst asunder, all various types of living things sprang up, and those of them which had received the largest share of heat went off into the upper regions and became birds, while those which retained an unearthly consistency were counted in the order of reptiles and of the other land animals, and those which had partaken most largely of the watery element ran together to the place congenial to their nature, and were called aquatic. But the earth being more and more solidified, both by the fire about the sun and by the winds, and last was no longer able to quicken by the larger creatures into life, but the several kinds of animals were generated from their union one with another. It seems that even Euripides, who was a disciple of the physicist Anaxagoras, does not dissent from what has been now said concerning the nature of the universe, for he thus writes in the Melanite: "So heaven and earth at first had all one form, but when in place dissevered each from another, each from other, they gave to all things birth and brought to light trees, birds, the beasts, and all the salts seas, brood and race of mortal men." Such are the traditions which we have received concerning the first beginnings of the universe, and they say that the primitive generations of mankind, living in a disorderly and savage state, used to go wandering out over the pastures and procure for food and tenderest